Hi, all. Anne O'Connell with OC Publishing here, and welcome to today's author journey. It's a beautiful sunny day outside, and I'm very excited about our two guests today. I'm going to introduce them real quick so we can jump right into the meat of our discussion. We have with us today Peter and Carol Moreira, both multi-genre authors and prolific writers. I can't wait for them to share with you some of the insight into their writing processes. I'll give you just a little background before I bring them up with me. Peter has spent more than 40 years in journalism in Asia, Europe, and North America. His postings include London bureau chief for The Deal, European banking correspondent for Bloomberg, banking reporter for the South China Morning Post, and a stint at the Canadian Press Parliamentary Bureau in Ottawa. His writing has appeared in USA Today, the Columbia Journalism Review online, the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, National Post, and the Independent on Sunday in London. He's the author of Hemingway on the China Front, Potomac 2006, Backwater, Nova Scotia's Economic Decline, Nimbus 2009, The Jew Who Defeated Hitler, Prometheus 2014, and his crime fiction series set in San Francisco in the 1960s, The Hate, A Hitman on Hate Street, and The Prody Syndicate. So we'll talk a little bit more about that. Carol Moreira has worked in journalism around the world. Her work has appeared in the Globe and Mail, the Toronto Star, and the South China Morning Post, among many other newspapers and magazines. She won a magazine feature writing award in 2009 and another in 2011. Her first novel, a YA story called Charged, was published to good reviews in 2008 by James Lorimer. The next was Membrane, published by Fierce Ink Press in 2013, and her most recent novel, Riptide, published by Moose House Publications in 2021. So if that doesn't impress you, I don't know what will. So I'm going to bring Carol and Peter up here to join me. Hi, guys. Yay. Welcome to the author journey. Thank you so much for joining me. I know you guys have been traveling.
Yes, it's good to be here.
Was it?
Sorry, we're sharing a screen. So
that's okay.
Keep moving back and forth. But anyway, good to see you. Hi, everybody.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you. And you're back, and we're actually coming from you both, myself and Carol and Peter, from Halifax, Nova Scotia. So I also wanted to make sure that anybody who's watching knows to ask questions. If you're watching and are interested in learning more, just throw a chat question into the chat box. So let's jump right in. You guys, prolific writers, multi-genre, how do you balance it all? And my biggest question is, how do you share your writing space? What does that look like?
So let me just say, we write different books, but we work together on our family business. And that is a business called Entrevestor.com, which reports on and analyzes data on startups in Atlantic Canada. And that really keeps us busy. It, keeps the wolves from the door, and it allows us to do what we really love, which is traveling and writing books. And then the writing books really sort of falls into place because it's enjoyable, and it's just sort of the diversion from the day job.
Yeah, it's not difficult. We edit each other's books. So we do have a fairly solid relationship, don't we? Because as you know, can be a very fraught process.
Yes.
So yeah, that's not a problem because we're very different in that way. So we provide insights to each other. And in terms of space, we recently moved house. We've moved into the city. So that's a bit difficult. We're still finding our feet there, but it's not a problem. I think if you've got a laptop, you can work anywhere. I mean, you can work in a coffee shop, can't you? You love working in a coffee shop.
Yeah.
And
I love it.
our daughter's here right now with her laptop, so
Oh
we're
my
all
goodness.
stumbling around.
I think
So,
that's awesome. And it's funny, you touched on a few things there and probably covered a couple of my questions already, which is wonderful. But people who have different, writing styles and different things that motivate them. Personally, I can't take my laptop and write anywhere. I
you
have to
can't,
be, I
okay.
can't, I have to be at my desk. It has to be quiet. The door has to be closed. Nobody else in the room or in my head except for my characters, right?
Right. Okay. I was like that before, Anne, but I felt I was missing out too much on life, that I was living too sequestered an existence. So,
Yeah.
and
Well,
Peter is someone who thrives on coffee shops and the buzz of it all and just people watching. And I think I learned to do that, and now I feel I'm a bit more flexible. I don't know if my writing's improved or not.
well, I totally understand that, and that's what I would consider my research. So
Mhm.
I would get out with a notepad and enjoy, being
Right, right,
outdoors and
right.
exploring and
Yeah.
stuff. I want to say hi to Jane. Jane Doucette has joined us, and she says hi, Carol and
Hi,
Peter.
Jane.
Hi, Jane.
Jane, I just finished your book. I loved it.
Isn't it the best? Oh my
I
goodness,
love it. You did such a lovely job of capturing Nova Scotia, and it's just so human.
it's
It really sort
amazing.
of you laugh. It brings tears to the eye. I thought it was just great.
She says, and you know what? You'll have to go back and watch the author journey with Jane. We had a lot of fun with that
Yes,
one.
yes, I have to do that. Yeah.
She said the Moreiras are Canada's John Gregory Dunn and Joan Didion. Wow.
Well,
That's
yeah,
high
yeah, maybe
praise,
not.
right? I love it. So let's jump right in. Let's talk a little bit about, because as you mentioned, Carol, you guys write very, very different genres from
Mhm.
your book writing perspective. You're similar in the sort of the journalism background, and so
Yeah.
that's sort of where you came up was in
Even
journalism
there,
writing.
Peter's much more numbers based than me. I'm a
Uh,
typical journalist. I'm very interested in the human interest and
mhm.
yeah.
Well,
So
and
and
you've
I
done.
like to edit. I'm a good editor. I spot typos. It's
Oh, I
very
love it. Ooh.
prosaic, dull talent, but I seem to have that.
In your free time, I'm always looking for good editors. So let's bring
Okay.
let's bring up your some of the books that you've written, and let's talk a little bit about the most recent one, of course, being Riptide.
Yeah.
And I was really drawn into it from the early pages because your main character's last name is O'Connell.
Yes, that's right. I think you guys were an inspiration. I was
Oh,
looking for a very, Scottish, Nova Scotian name, and
mhm.
probably subconsciously you were in there. Yeah. Cameron O'Connell sounds good, eh? Oh, have we lost her? Hi, Anne.
Sorry, here I am. Talk a little bit about going from the journalism and feature writing to young adult, and how did that evolution come about?
Okay, Anne, you cut out for a minute there, so I hope I didn't miss anything.
I think I
Um,
repeated it.
oh, did you?
Yeah.
Okay, you could tell, eh? We were like, oh my gosh.
Sorry.
I don't know. I think it was having kids, right?
Mhm.
We were newly in Nova Scotia from London, England, and we took our kids then, sort of very young, to a
Mhm.
beach, and we went out to an island and we did the typical Nova Scotia thing, and then we realized there was no one else around. And driving back in the car, the weather started to really change, and then we realized there was a hurricane on the way. We turned on the news, and that was sort of the germ for the idea of riptides. One of the main characters in that book is an immigrant from London, England, as I am, but of Indian descent. And it sort of seemed to sort of embody the sense of the difficulty of being an immigrant in a way, just adjusting to everything, including the climate. So that sort of got it going, really. It's sort of everyday life, I think.
And part of the theme in that book is sort of the adjusting to new places,
Mhm.
and taking risks and things of that nature. But I mean, just looking at the cover, and the particular scene that the cover actually depicts. Talk about
Mhm.
how well, where did that come from, and how did that get written?
I love that cover so much. It kind of really captures the book. To me,
Mhm,
that wasn't my work at all. That was Rebecca Wetmore at Moose House came up with that.
mhm,
I think she captured the Nova Scotia coastline and the danger in the book, because I think one of the themes of the book sort of grew out of that initial experience, which is the beauty and fascination, but also the horror and danger of nature, right? How it can turn like that, and that I think that cover just captures it all. You know, she's helping out to him, sort
mhm,
of reaching out to him,
mhm.
and she's the newcomer, in fact, in the book, but she's sort of finding her feet in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
So you're
I
right; it's all about finding your feet in a new environment.
Mhm. And you mentioned that, Jane's book, really did capture Nova Scotia, and I think the Riptides did as well. And, having grown
Very
up
good.
here, yeah, having grown up here, it really,
It felt a bit cheeky to try and capture Nova Scotia as, essentially an outsider, but we
not
had lived
cheeky.
in sort of in St. Margaret's Bay, actually, quite a long time, so I had grown to know it quite well.
Oh, yes. And how long have you been here?
18 years
18
now.
years. I should know
Yeah,
that.
yeah, it's quite a while.
Wow. And Charged is quite different. I'm gonna try and get through these so we can get to Peter's as well, and then we can, do sort of a
Mhm.
round robin. Charged is a very different book to Riptides, but still YA. So just explain a little bit about the theme of that book.
I think that's the perennial theme of teenage disappointment in your parents. That stage when you realize that they're people after all, and very often with beads of clay. And I think, again, that sort of grew out of some of my kids' experiences, but just observations. You know what it's like if you're a writer, you're always noticing things.
Hmm.
And it is a perennial theme. So again, there's a kid from a very different background to the other. I think that's sort of something I like.
Hmm. And the relationship between son and mother is charged not just because of the typical teen angst.
Mhm.
Um, can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the mum is a bit lost. I mean, she's unsupported, and as
Hmm.
a single mom, I've been lucky enough not to be in that position, but you can just imagine how hard it must be. And with no support, she's sort of floundered a bit
Hmm.
emotionally, and she's kind of being the wrong kind of man for in her son's opinion. Her son is quite judgmental, as teenagers often are, but he happens to be right in this case.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, it's like he's having to sort of look after his mother and his younger brother. And he's a really good kid, so he tries to, but it's really hard for him, and he's quite disappointed.
Okay, so there's a lot of angst and controversy in that particular book.
Yeah.
And tell me, you say that you and Peter sort of read each other's work and bounce things around. Do your kids read your books?
Oh, they prefer not to. My daughter was really upset once because I did use a snippet of a very small incident that occurred between us both on a ski hill, in Charged actually, and she was a bit upset with me for doing that. So she hasn't read
Well,
it. Fair enough.
yeah, I guess it can be a bit of a challenge. But you know what? Sometimes let her write about her experiences, right? And you can write from
Exactly.
your
Wait till
perspective.
she's a bit older. I don't see her doing that. She makes wind turbines.
Oh my goodness,
This
and
is
an
more
amazing,
practical. Yeah.
yeah. Thinking about a startup that's doing really well, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Mhm,
we are proud of her, sort of the green movement. She's one of
mhm.
those really impressive young people trying to make a difference.
That's awesome. And lastly, Membrane. What's that about?
That's a
Share.
fantasy in which the home universe is Halifax.
Mhm,
Um, I think I observed this to schools. I had a new club I ran, and I mean, you shouldn't put everything on parents, but how kids are raised obviously is a big influence in how they feel about themselves, how confident they are, etc.
Mhm.
And it occurred to me it'd be kind of interesting to have a girl have parallel universes in which two girls were genetically identical. But
Wow.
one was really confident because she'd had a pretty good life, and the other was much less so because of what had happened to her. And they meet each other and they hate each other on sight. And it's sort of a lot about that conflict. But I did actually read a science book at the time about parallel universes, and that was a huge inspiration because I didn't realize till then that it's it's a real thing. It
It's
could
a
really
thing.
be the
Yeah.
case.
And I love the idea of, this whole idea of world building. And I used to
I
read a
love
lot of
that. I love
fantasy.
fantasy. I just
Mhm.
finished an adult fantasy, and I just love the potential. You can do anything in
Oh,
fantasy.
it's so amazing, like
It's
Avatar,
amazing.
yeah. I
Yeah.
read The Dragon Riders of Pern and devoured it, and
Did
that
you?
was,
Is
yeah,
that
quite
gonna
a
be
while
your
ago.
next thing, Anne?
Oh, no, I think I'll stick to mystery if I can never get back to writing, right?
Yes. Yeah, you're kind of busy. That's right.
Oh, it's kind of crazy. I want to say hi to Lana Shoup, who's joining us from Calgary. Hi, Lana.
Wow.
Oh,
Hi.
yay! Lana's just about to launch her first children's book, so we'll watch for that as
Excellent.
well. So,
Congratulations.
so let's jump right into Peter's
Yeah, I'll
books,
turn you
and
over.
yeah, you're gonna turn me over to Peter. Peter, you started when you're book writing. You were doing more historical, biographical nonfiction. Would that kind of describe it?
Sort of. There's a few decades of writing fiction that never saw the light of day. I was
Okay.
a very slow learner. And then finally, the first book I got published was nonfiction about Ernest Hemingway.
Let's bring those up. Okay, so here are your covers here.
Yep.
So you're
So
referring to the one on China front, Hemingway on the China
we
front.
start at the bottom left.
Right.
Uh, Hemingway on the China front, which I still think is the best thing I've written. Um,
What did you like best about it? What was the
well, there's been more biographical stuff written about Ernest Hemingway than any author in the history of the world. Um, and I managed to find 6 months of his life in a very exotic country that nobody else had really dived deep into.
wow.
Um, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of research. I love doing archival work.
Hmm.
And I got to deliver, after it came out, I got to deliver a paper at the Hemingway Society Biennial Conference in Ronda, Spain. I've
Wow.
delivered a talk about it in Ketchum, Idaho, the town where he killed himself. It's really been a lot of fun.
Hmm.
It's more than a decade ago, almost a decade, more than a
Wow.
decade and a half now.
Oh my
But
goodness, time flies.
yeah, but
And
yeah, I really, really love that book.
were you living in China when you were doing your research?
When I started it, we were living in Hong Kong, yes.
Okay. And is that
Um,
where you came across that little tidbit of information, or were you looking for something to write
I'd
about
already read a
Hemingway?
lot of biography about him, and
Hmm.
it seemed that everybody always skimmed over this thing. So I
Hmm.
spent a summer in the public records office in Hong Kong, just searching for interviews with him or
Wow.
stuff about him in the paper from the time.
Hmm.
And after a few weeks, going in on weekends, I found an interview, the first interview with him. I found a second one, and just little references to him in the local papers at the time. And it's hard to come by the local papers because late in the occupation, the Japanese troops ran out of fuel, so
Mm.
anything that was paper was burned.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, it's luckily there are single edition or single examples in the records office of papers that still survive.
Wow. So tell us about the Jew who defeated Hitler. How did that come about? And
So when Hemingway was in China, he was providing intelligence to Henry Morgenthau Jr., who was Franklin Roosevelt's um, Treasury Secretary.
Mhm.
And I did a bit of research on him, and it turns out that this is the guy who really financed the Allied cause in the Second World War. He's almost forgotten. He was seen simply as a yes man to Roosevelt, who got his job because they were neighbors in upstate New York. So I began to research him and spent a lot of time in the Roosevelt Library in Hyde Park, New York.
Wow.
And yeah, this is a dyslexic college dropout that ended up at the time, and basically overseeing the biggest economic project known to man.
Wow.
And so yeah, it's a good story. I wish the book had done better,
Mm.
but it's out there. And
Well,
yeah,
how do people, well, and that's something we'll do just to wrap up, but all your books are on Amazon, correct?
they are all on Amazon. Yes.
Okay, and I'm assuming you can also, if anybody is interested in any of your books, either Carol's or Peter's, could ask a local bookstore to order them in as well. So talk a little bit about, I mean, Backwater is a totally different sort of a departure, but sort of
Totally
more,
different beast.
yeah, but
Yeah,
in
Backwater was just, I'd been doing some columns for the Chronicle Herald in the first decade of the century
mm,
on the Nova Scotia economy. And I just wanted to tie it all together and say, we're in trouble. We're in trouble from a fiscal situation and a demographic situation, and we're not addressing those problems. Now, the demographic situation has improved because of immigration. The fiscal situation has actually, I think, probably got worse because of the coronavirus.
mhm,
Um, I think it was sort of I'm not probably not as worried as I was then,
mhm.
largely because of the startups that we report on day in, day out. I think are providing more opportunity than there was 10 years ago.
It sounds
But
like there might
they're
be,
not a large enough part of the economy yet to really make a difference, but hope springs eternal.
right, and it sounds as though there might be a follow-up book to Backwater.
Probably not.
No? Oh,
Probably
okay.
not.
I just have to follow your column on Entrevestor, right?
That's right.
Yeah. Okay, so segue into your fiction writing. So
Yeah, this is a real departure.
this
I
is a real
fell in
departure.
love as
How?
a 20-year-old with San Francisco and with Haight Ashbury. And so it took me a long time to learn how to write a detective novel. But
It's a real
finally, we got it.
specialization.
We got it out.
Mm-hmm.
So we got out 2 copies with publishers in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
The third one I put out on my own, and the fourth one, which should be out later this year, I'll put out on my own. They all follow the investigations of Jimmy Sprackland, who's a lieutenant, a homicide detective in San Francisco, and they take place around Haight Ashbury, which was the center of the Summer of Love in 1967. So they're whodunits with hippies.
Oh, I love it. Whodunits with hippies. And they're awesome. I've read the first two, and I haven't read the Prody Syndicate yet. I understand it's on Kindle now, and the paperback will come out in the near future. So
I hope so,
more to
yes.
come on that.
Yeah.
Maybe when you're done.
Yeah. So my lips to God's ears, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
when you talk about the learning curve to learning how to write detective fiction, what kind of research did you do? I mean, because you are a research guy, like that is
Yeah.
your passion.
The research wasn't the problem.
Okay.
Luckily, I'm married to a really good editor who sort of told me to chuck some of the research because I go on and on and on
A little
about it.
too much backstory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I had to learn to taper that down. There's 2 things I had to learn to do. One is control the tone,
Mhm,
because I think the tone, especially with American crime fiction, should be sparse, should be serious.
mhm,
Um, it can't be, the writing cannot be too flowery.
Right.
And the second thing I learned, and I learned it reading the writings of Pam Callow, another Halifax
Isn't she
author.
great? Yes.
She is
Love
wonderful.
Pamela Kelly. Yeah. Mhm.
Is the story depends on the emotion and personality of the protagonist more than the technical or search for the
Yeah.
for who did it. And
Yeah.
I had to bring out the character of Jimmy Sprackland more and make the reader care about him and his family.
Excellent.
And I think once I crossed those two chasms, the book made sense.
Yeah. It's awesome. And it is, you learn more and more the more you write.
Yep.
And I'm hoping that my last novel will become a series. So I am taking your advice on and thinking about my main character.
Well, I think what you did really brilliantly, and I'm arguing against myself now, was brought out just such an exotic world, especially in the upper reaches of Saudi society.
Yeah.
That's
Well, but
what I
that can,
really,
yeah, that's more almost a character though, when you have something that is that, um, multi-layered and
yeah,
exotic, as you say, it kind of
yeah,
becomes a character. But yeah, and I really appreciate that. Thank you for saying that. One of these days I'll get back to it.
you
So
got to.
thank you. Let's talk a little bit more about, I call this the power couple, writing couple. I mean, when you do share your writing between each other. So, Carol, why don't you take this one? How
Mhm.
far along are you before you hand it over and say, Peter, what do you think?
Oh, usually it's done.
Oh, not in the, okay.
Yeah, I mean, unless I have a real question about something.
Hmm.
Like sometimes I time it wrong. Like I've just finished one in which the characters are male twins of
Hmm.
16. And I finally got Peter to read it. Perhaps I was overconfident in it.
Mm.
And he pointed out some things that only a guy would really notice in most cases.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, well, I kind of wasted my time there.
Oh, I have twin
It kind
nephews.
of depends.
We all have twin nephews, right? And I have twins in my first novel, twin
Right,
17
exactly.
or 18-year-olds. So I certainly pulled a
Yeah,
lot from that experience.
I wouldn't put our nephews in a novel because no one would believe it.
Right. And happy birthday to our oldest nephew, right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, Carol doesn't know it yet, but I just shared book 4 with her today. She hasn't checked her emails yet.
Oh.
You do. What I did with this novel is I went through the first draft and there was just too much for me to work out. So I went back and did a second draft. Now, that's not a complete rewrite, but with a crime novel, you've got to have certain events, certain clues, certain things happening at certain points in the tale.
Yeah.
And I had to work that out. So she's got a very unpolished draft in front of her.
Oh, good.
Yay.
And I
She's excited.
don't want a strong edit. I just want to know, does the plot
Yeah.
make sense?
Yeah. So what
Yeah.
you're asking her is more of a developmental
Yeah, exactly.
feedback. So, well, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And so, do you have a working title for the next one, or that you're willing to share
It's
at this point?
called The Buena Vista Sniper.
The Buena
Now,
Vista Sniper.
Yeah, my
Ooh.
books take place in Haight-Ashbury, which is a neighborhood in San Francisco, right at the very end of Golden Gate Park.
Right.
So one end of Haight-Ashbury is Golden Gate Park. At the other end, there is this huge tree-covered hill called Buena Vista.
Mm-hmm.
And if you visit it, don't take Carol with you because she walks up it very quickly.
She's a good walker, is she?
She is, yes.
Wow.
So,
And you're both runners
this
too.
is about a sniper who was perched on Buena Vista.
Ooh, very cool. Well, if anybody out there is listening and wants to offer a beta read, you just let us know.
That would be helpful.
Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about, I know, Carol, that you belong to a writers group and you guys
Yeah.
share your work with each other, but do you have regular beta readers that help you, maybe fill in some of
Really,
those
just my
holes?
writers group.
Okay,
We've known each other about 15 years. So, we're just so close.
that's awesome.
If it's too nice, too friendly, mind judgment, that would be criticism of getting really fond of your writers group and beta readers. But yeah, I just find they're fantastic and
And talk about
really
how important are your beta readers?
very, excuse me. I think I got hay fever. A lot because different perspectives, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And I'm not a Nova Scotian, and that's another thing. Sometimes I use British English, even when I'm trying not to. So they really spot things. So it's great.
Oh, that's fantastic. And so, what?
I'll hand you off because I'm losing my voice.
Okay, Peter, what inspires you? I mean, you talk a little bit about, being a real history buff and think like what inspired you to write detective novels?
I haven't a clue. I really don't.
It just
And
started.
Ann, when I started writing this, I didn't read that much crime fiction.
So you love Michael Collins?
That's developed since I started writing it. I
That's
didn't know
interesting.
a lot about the genre. I thought, oh, anyone can do this. I was way too big-headed and then fell flat on my face. And then read more and more and more and more and more. And now I really love good crime fiction.
Hmm.
I find there's a lot out there that is submediocre. I adore writers like Michael Connelly, Joe Nesbo, David Corbett, who lives north of Oakland, California, and hasn't been writing, or his stuff hasn't been published as much as before. He is brilliant. I just adore his stuff.
Wow, I'll have to make a note of that, and my to read pile just gets bigger and bigger, right?
Yeah, they tend to grow.
Yeah, I love crime and thriller, but what I write is more cozy mystery. And when I think about like a comparative, it would be the Sue Grafton, Kinsey Millhone mysteries. So that's sort of what I'm sort of aiming for. But
What I really love is police procedural.
well, that's what I love to read and watch. Yeah.
Especially American police procedural. And there really isn't, I find it really hard to find stuff that really suits my taste. I wish Val McDermid was American. I think she's brilliant.
Do you read any of the British crime authors like P.D. James or?
P.D. James is just not suited to me. I adore Val McDermid, who I just got into recently.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I like Rebus, he's a bit of a lighter touch than Michael Connelly is.
Okay. Well, I can't believe we're almost out of time. I'm just going down the list to see if anybody had any questions. Lots of hellos.
Hello.
Hello there.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about your author journeys before we wrap up, or anything that we missed?
I just advise people to persevere, right? Like Peter was saying, how arrogant he was initially, a little bit. And I think we all are a little bit, right? And it takes a while. You get a lot of rejections, and I think just persevere.
Oh, that's really great advice.
I don't think so. It is a frustrating business.
Yeah.
You've got to be patient.
It's a lifelong addiction.
And it's a hard addiction, yes.
Lifelong addiction,
Don't quit
Carol.
your
You're
day
absolutely
job.
right. It is. And that's what, when a lot of times when I ask authors why they write, it's the answer is often, I have no choice. You know, I
Yes,
have to write. It's just, it's
yes,
in me.
J.
And
J.K. Rowling's answer to that is, well, why don't you?
right, right,
yeah,
absolutely, yeah.
that's
And
true.
fortunately,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, fortunately, you know, I'm involved enough in the writing process that I don't miss writing too much. But one of these days, and Jane says more hopeful than arrogant, maybe.
Arrogant was right.
But it is true. Like you sit down and you think, yeah, I can do this. This isn't so
Yeah,
hard. And then all of a sudden you're
Yeah.
like, and you mentioned earlier, Peter, you know, what you have to weave in to build a plot, to keep it moving forward, but also to have the foreshadowing and the red herrings in that, but so that the red
yeah,
herrings are believable and not just thrown in for the sake of,
Yeah, that's
you know,
right.
throwing people off kind of
You
things.
like
yeah.
puzzles, you love
I like the
quizzes.
puzzles. I also
Mm.
find that I think what I like to do best is keep my protagonist in danger.
Mm.
Awesome.
Um, yeah, oh, Da Vinci Code, Dan
Mm,
Brown. Dan
mm,
Brown can do a really good job of
mhm,
that when he's on his game.
mhm.
Da Vinci Code was a really good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want, I mean, it's like not only do you want your protagonist to be on their toes constantly, but you want your reader to be on their toes as well. There's got to be a reason to turn that page. And it's okay for your reader to get angry with you for throwing, you know, another curveball at your
Yep,
protagonist, because that's an emotion, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it's
yep.
Not
all
if you're
about.
for me.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So I really want to thank you guys so much for
Thank
joining
you,
me
Heather.
and for
Thank you.
sharing your stories. And hopefully we've been able to, you know, inspire people to get out there and have a look at. I'm going to bring your covers up here once more.
Oh, and can I just say, membrane is currently out of print.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
unfortunately, I think like many independent small publishers didn't survive, but it's coming out again with Moose House this year.
Okay. Turn your computer a little bit towards you. So,
Okay,
okay,
so
it's
it's
out of
coming.
print.
Membrane is coming. Is being republished this year by Moose House.
Oh, excellent. Yay, Moose
So,
House.
so it's currently not available, but later this year.
And we love Moose House, another local
Yes, they're
Atlantic
doing
publisher.
so well. Yeah, the
Yes.
business in this region is really thriving. So that's
It's great to be a part
great.
of the publishing world
Yes.
in this region. So well, yes, and Peter's books, your fourth in the series will be
Yeah, I'm
out.
hoping it'll be out by the end of the year. I try to get one
Okay.
out a year.
Excellent, excellent. That's a very good goal, I think.
It's yeah, it's a bit of an indulgence to try to meet it.
Yeah, but you know what? Indulge away because we're
Yeah,
waiting.
thank
And
you, Anne.
I need to get you to sign all your books here. So one of these days
One of these days, yep.
we'll definitely get that. So thank you again for joining me,
Take care.
and we'll
Thank you,
see
Anne.
you
Hope to see you
soon.
in person.
Oh, soon, I hope. Right?
Okay. Take care.
Bye for now. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on the author journey today. And thank you, Carol and Peter Moreira, for sharing your author journeys with us. And we'll see you again another day on the author journey. For now, I'm Anne O'Connell with OC Publishing saying goodbye for now.